come on, you call this acting? I mean, so again, I am just, just at the tip of the iceberg, but I understand the time and the effort and the resources it takes to create something, could be film or movie or a simple documentary. I this weekend I finished a book written by Tom Vitale, who used to be the director for Anthony Bourdain, his show Parts Unknown, No Reservations. He started from the ground up as just a simple cameraman, and over 15 years he became his director and the guy. And after Anthony Bourdain died, he wrote this book because he was sort of lost. He didn't know what to do. And that book confirms everything that they say. I mean, holy crap. It takes a village. You might see Anthony Bourdain on camera, but there are literally 20 guys behind the camera. If you ever get a chance, Google Anthony Bourdain Obama, when Bourdain and Obama are having lunch in Vietnam. One of the chapters is dedicated to just that one episode. And it was fascinating, all the prep work that went to have Obama as guest. I mean, on the episode, they make it seem like Obama just showed up.
Right.
It don't work like that.
Yeah, there's actually also Mark Maron, the podcaster, talks about having Obama on his podcast. And they had to have one of the most outstanding things you hear him talk about is how they had to literally have secret agents on top of his garage with semi-automatic weapons or something, and they had to come scope out the location for days in advance and stuff like that. But I may be exaggerating to the exact type of weaponry that they had, but it was an operation, and there was a lot. And that's just a political figure, but even Secret beyond Service that,
guys are always packing anyway, right? I mean,
right. So I want to talk a little bit more than you brought up the topic of preparation and how you've seen other people preparing, and we know that you script out and plan all your episodes, and most of them are solo presentations too. So you're not kind of scripting an interview like I'm doing where I have some questions and I'm expecting someone else to create some of the content. It's all you delivering, creating all that. How do you go about that prep process?
We spend 80% of our time pre-production. Literally 80% of my time is pre-production. Because if we plan it correctly, if the script is written correctly, then production time literally is 1 to 2 hours. I'm telling you, when we meet with my crew, we're just banging it out within 1 to 2 hours, and we're going out for lunch, having beers. And then post-production is easy too, because we've done all the legwork up front. Everybody knows exactly what goes where, what to say where, what music goes, what B-roll goes, where to cut. So yeah, we spend a lot of time in writing the script, and we do 2 or 3 table reads. We select B-rolls. We're organizing a script. 80% of our time is pre-production. 10% is production, 10% post-production. Very little post. Post is just, sometimes what happens is, you think this would be the right B-roll. You think this would be the right voiceover, but sometimes it doesn't go right. Even though on paper, in theory, it makes sense pre-production, but you're still doing things on the fly post-production, and that's just always going to be the way. One thing, even though I knew nothing about video production, one thing I did, and thank God I had the foresight of thinking about it, is spending time pre-production. And my team was most supportive, and they liked it because they've been around the block. You don't want to be doing production and thinking, oh, I missed that scene. Oh, that shot didn't come out well. And oh, we got to meet again. That's bullshit. Come on. That's no fun. Spend time up front, and boom, boom, production and post-production, and you're done. But each video takes a lot of time. We spend about total man hours per episode. Even though my episodes are short, 5 to 7 minutes, but total man hours, I would say about 20, 25 hours an episode. So
Henry, you got to step up your game, brother. No, just kidding. But it's interesting to hear about it. And when you do that planning, how much of that is like actual team? Because you talked about using the team to do planning. What percentage of that planning is, you independently kind of sitting down with like a piece of paper or your computer, writing out some things on your own, versus actually getting together with like a crew of people and talking it through?
So I would say out of 20, 25 hours, I would say half of the time is mine personally. Yeah, I mean, that includes research and content writing. And, I do the content, I do the research, and then I have a copy editor and she makes it pop. Right. But, the original content has to be me. And I mean, sure, it is mine because otherwise it's no fun. I mean, we're starting with season 2 of my YouTube channel, and we're going to have fun with season 2. So you've seen my YouTube channel. We're looking at all different kinds of businesses. We're looking at, say, an auto dealership. We're looking at a CPA practice. We're looking at a self-storage facility. What these different types of businesses are worth. And I am one of the few appraisers in the country who has valued all kinds of unique and interesting things, like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Verrazano Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, I mean, the Alaskan Pipeline, Atlanta Airport, Mirage Casino, and I'm not rattling off that list to impress you. I'm saying, I share that to impress upon you that, I have valued all kinds of unique and interesting assets. So my producer talked me into showcasing one of those projects on the YouTube channel. And I was very hesitant because it's almost seemed like, I was showing off. But then I was like, whatever, let's just do one. So I did the Eiffel Tower. Even though I have actually not technically appraised the Eiffel Tower. I mean, I have never been paid to appraise the Eiffel Tower, but I thought, hey, I'll share that. Hey, if somebody were to hire me, how would I do it? So I did. And the reception was fantastic. So I was like, well, this thing's got some teeth to it. So then I did another one, the Golden Gate Bridge, and that also the reception was fantastic. So in season 2, we are double downing again on what people responded to. So in season 2, we're doing something different. We're saying, what are some of the wonders of the world worth? So far, we just completed the Great Wall of China. So what is the Great Wall of China worth? And I have 4 scripts ready to go. I have the Panama Canal written up, the Taj Mahal written up, the Colosseum of Rome written up, and the Empire State Building. So, hey, were you curious to know what the Taj Mahal is worth or what the Empire State is worth? If so, well, might have a show for you.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Yeah, because I can imagine it's just one of those things. It's kind of, I mean, it's not on the same level. There's probably not as many queries, of course, of that, but it's that level of, oh, what's Elon Musk's net worth? Clickety clack, clickety clack. What's I can't think of anybody famous that's got a silly. What's Ethan Janney's net worth? What's Barad Kanodi's net worth? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but people, asking like, how much is the Eiffel Tower worth? I could see people being curious about that, just Googling that. And then the more you do it, probably the more people become interested for sure.
When I mean, when the show Ancient Aliens came out, I mean, who thought that Ancient Aliens, a show like that, which is so left field and so bohemic is probably very understating. It is so let's just say kooky. Who thought that would be such a big hit? As I said, I put some production value behind my videos. So I frankly don't create video for YouTube's. Of course, I don't have the, $500,000 budget or $2 million budget like some of these networks. But I create episodes for Nat Geo. So the second season that we're developing for The Wonders of the World, what the wonders of the world are worth, In my mind, I'm creating this 5-7 minute episode as a sizzle reel for National Geographic.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I want to get to a very specific episode that you did because it's super relevant, I think, to us. And by the way, Jinda Lee, thank you for joining us here. And if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat. And if you did want to speak, we'll open it up a little bit later. But thank you for being here. So you actually did an episode about appraising a podcast. And I want to talk about kind of just that episode, but also like how high you can leverage the power of a podcast, after you having kind of done that study.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why do you think Joe Rogan was paid, what was it, almost 3-4 years ago now? I mean, believe it or not, time flies. He was paid $100 million for his podcast. I mean, who the hell thought somebody would pay $100 million for a podcast? But this weekend, I was actually watching some of the clips from his podcast, and they're very insightful. He is a very good interviewer, and he gets to the bottom of things. And when you're buying a podcast, buying a podcast is no different than buying a radio show or buying a syndicated show or buying a company like Twitter for $45 billion, right? What you're really buying are the followership, right? What you're really buying, like if somebody's paying, Anthony Bourdain $20 million to do, Parts Unknown, you're not paying for Tony Bourdain, you're paying for the followers that Anthony Bourdain brings to the table. So when you pay $100 million for Joe Rogan, you're not paying for Joe Rogan, you're paying for the followers and the listeners or the audience that Joe Rogan brings. When you pay $25 million for Tom Cruise, you're not paying for Tom Cruise, you're paying for the followers of Tom Cruise who will go see the movie just because it is Tom Cruise's movie. By the way, speaking of Tom Cruise, I just learned that he does his own stunts.
Oh, really?
All the crazy stunts that you see in the Mission Impossible movie, that guy did them. I mean, falling off a plane, falling off a building, riding a helicopter, he did it. So, in like the new Maverick movie, Top Gun 2, that's not a green screen. That fucker is actually flying that plane. So,
I know he got a pilot's license. Yeah. It's that's an interesting way to think about it too. And of course, I think that, gets to why these people do get paid so much and probably why he does his own stunts or the value of him doing his own stunts, because people can have a conversation about the fact that he does his own stunts and because, I want to see Tom Cruise, he's doing his own stunts, right? It's different than, here's a guy who's not doing his own stunts. That's not as interesting to watch potentially, right?
Precisely. So of course, I don't have that kind of followership, but people appreciate my work, right? And so the people who listen to me, they appreciate my perspective, right? So I recently gave a TEDx, and in my TEDx, I say that, there are always people who will dismiss you, doubt you, and even laugh at you, right? When you do something different. But there will also be people who are inspired by you, right? Those people are the ones that matter, right? Those people are the ones that are your tribe. So you forget about everybody else. You take this pot of gold, right? Your tribe, and you grow that.
So this is interesting to me, this question. We talk about this quite a bit throughout the sessions that we have here. You can have a lot of people want to have a larger audience, of course, for their podcast. It's just the first thing. It feels better to say I have like a higher number of downloads, right? It was a message that was passed on to me, though, from a guy who's actually been in podcasting since the beginning. He's like, well, I had a podcast where Bill Gates was one of the listeners, right? Like, so didn't really matter to me, like how many there were when I had like people like Bill Gates listening to my podcast, right? So, but I guess the question for you is, how do we manage that as podcasters when we're trying to think how much is our audience worth, versus the raw numbers? Hey, I've got 100,000 downloads in a month versus, hey, I've got, maybe 10,000 downloads in a month or even 5,000, but I've got like the leaders of industry or something like that, right? Or world leaders or whoever it is, right? How would you go about thinking about the amount of the audience versus like who the audience is when you're thinking about the valuation?
It is just like starting a company or starting a show or dating, if you will, right? Say, for example, if you were on Tinder or you were a kid in college and you were dating, you have to leverage whatever appeal you might have. So if there are women who like a beard, you have to go for the women who like the beard. If there are women who like clean shaven, well, they're probably not your tribe. So if you spend time with them or if you go after them, you're wasting your time. So go for the listeners or the audience that like Ethan Janney, right? And honestly, yes, it is great to have, big shots like, Bill Gates or, Barack Obama listening. But it's not even that important. And the reason Barack Obama or Bill Gates is important listening is because they have a followership. So if there's a 0.0001% chance that they might share it with their network, well, that's going to exponentially increase your podcast. So the reason you want Barack Obama or Bill Gates is because of that minuscule possibility. But irrespective of that, what's important is even if your podcast is small, but your audience appreciates you and enjoys your opinion, that's what matters, because you allow them to share it with others and say, hey, you ought to be listening to Ethan. Oh, he has some good content. And that's how it really grows. I'll give you an example. I live in a small town near San Francisco in a burb, and we have a small time farmers market. It's not very big. They probably have 30 35 vendors, and one of the vendors is a small cookie bake shop. And I don't like to go to cookie bake shop because I don't like to pay $7 for a fucking cookie. But this guy has a small, like a wedding cookie package. So that package is like, $25, and it's got, about, I don't know, 16, 17 cookies, which is very expensive for a little cookie. And the cookies are like this big. They're like wedding cookies. But they're so good, right? I mean, it's worth every penny. I buy it, every Saturday, and by Sunday, they're gone in my house, right? So I was standing in line in front of that vendor the other day, this Saturday, and it was raining, but I was standing in line. And there was a lady behind me. She goes, oh, why are we standing in line? Is this cookies that good? I'm like, you've never bought his cookies? She's like, no. I'm like, believe me, worth every penny. They're expensive. You got to stand in line in the rain, but they're worth every penny. So this is what you want. This is what you want your small audience, or maybe even 3 people, to tell others. You ought to listen to Ethan. He's got great content. And if that person happens to be Bill Gates or Barack Obama, well, I mean, that's when you hit the jackpot.
It makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I think, we talk about that a lot too. Like, we each have our own niche, right? There's Henry had before he had the How of Business podcast, he had the How of Car Wash, right? And it was all about car wash content. And, in a sense, there was a value in that for the sponsors, because there was a very specific niche of people who wanted to market to people listening to a car wash podcast. Very interesting example. So you and I talked a little bit about raising capital in general previously, and you've kind of said like different people in the same situation can have drastically different capabilities to raise funding for and to like value the project, like realize what the value of it is. Can you talk about this a little bit and how mindset plays a role in that type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I get a call all the time that, hey, I'm starting this new business and I'm looking to raise capital. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Um, just because you're starting a business, why do you think somebody will give you a check? Why do you think somebody will write you a check? You know, people don't write big checks to ideas or to businesses. This is the number one thing people do not understand. And I have a lot of banker friends, iBankers and traditional bankers and, VC friends. And if founders understood just this one thing that I'm trying to teach about raising capital, just this one thing, right? I mean, there are many other things that I can talk about, but for this podcast, let me just focus on this one thing. And this is the most important thing. Money is always given, debt or equity, doesn't matter, to a person. Never the idea, never the company. And if it's big enough, it's the team, right? So it's always given to person or people. That's why explaining in a pitch deck who you are and who your team is the first thing. So I'm an advisor with UC Berkeley's Accelerator, and I help a lot of the founders with, pitch decks and helping them raise capital. And their pitch decks are fairly standard. There's something that Berkeley does, makes them come up with pitch decks. And I am the renegade advisor, and I always say, bullshit, this pitch deck sucks. And they don't like it, but hey, I keep saying it. Their pitch deck goes, hey, what's the problem? What's the total addressable market? How much of the pie, that pie we can get? What problem we're solving? What is our product? How we're going to market this, how much money we're looking to raise, and who we are. And they're all the same, right? You go through pitch decks and they're all the same. You've heard all of them. And each founder that I listen to, I give them the same advice. And I tell them, you take that pitch deck and you flip it. If Ethan is pitching to me, I don't really care what business Ethan is in. Who is Ethan? Why am I talking to him? Who are you? Why am I talking to you? If I give you $100, will you give me the $100 back? So flip it. I first want to know who you are. Why should I listen to you? And then the worst thing they do when I say them that, hey, this is what you do, tell me, Ethan, who you are. Ethan will start rattling off, I just graduated from UC Berkeley, and I'm a student of PhD in electrical engineering, and I am from, the state of Hawaii. I looked at, I don't care. That's not what I mean. When I say, Ethan, tell me about you, I don't want to know if you're doing a PhD or if you live in Timbuktu. What I really want to know, Ethan, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? If I write you $100 check, first, if it doesn't work out, do you just walk away? Because you don't lose anything. I am out of $100. So your why is more important than your who. So when I say flip that pitch deck, I don't care about who. I want to know your why first. And then the second thing, once you've answered your why, I want to know how much money you want to raise. Because when you're doing a pitch meeting, I always laugh at this, but then again, I think differently than most people. So I always laugh at this because people go through the entire pitch And at the end, they will say that, okay, my company is worth $20 million and I'm looking to raise $4 million at the end. And for the last 10 minutes, while you've been pitching me, guess what question I'm thinking? Oh, I wonder how much money this guy's going to ask me. Oh, God, I wonder what the valuation is. While I'm not listening to you, while I'm thinking about that question. So instead, what you ought to do is, first thing you got to say who Ethan is, right? And why he's doing this. And second, Ethan should be saying, I am looking to raise $4 million at a $20 million valuation. That piques my interest. Oh, okay. Now that's interesting. Now tell me why. Why 4 million? Why 20 million? So go backwards.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, and it also seems like we're probably gonna have to move on to a different topic. I'm gonna hand it over to Henry. If I think he's got some things to ask you, but yeah, in general, it seems like almost like the value of the business when you're getting investors is in the people, right? And then as it evolves, it becomes less about the founders, right? Because of the founders. But did you invest in the founders that are able to turn the business into something that doesn't need them, or, that leverages exactly what they can offer and that they're going to be in it for life or whatever? But yeah, it seems like that value changes, right? If over time, and the people is the most important thing in the beginning. And then as you move forward, it becomes more about what does the business do and how does it generate revenue? Yeah.
Precisely. Sorry, it took more time, but I get passionate about this topic. So it's always fun to help entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. Henry, did you have anything you want to add to the conversation?
I'm not sure, but I think maybe I do have to drop off at the top of the hour. Maybe we can go back to the topic of valuing a podcast. Obviously, none of us are realistically going to reach Joe Rogan status. So
speak for yourself.
Exactly. Except for Ethan. Obviously you spoke to Bharat about obviously our listeners, who's listening, but what other components would you say that we need to look at as we are developing this asset that is our podcast that can add value long term? I guess let me ask that.
I mean, you want to focus on the basics, right? I mean, because if you can't get the basics right, I mean, you can't get anything else right. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have a, building that has that it's maybe, modern architecture or maybe Art Deco or something. But first, you got to focus on the foundation, and the foundation for podcasts is built on really two things: content and consistency. You got to be consistent in your content. You got to be consistent in your content creation. And when I say content creation, you don't have to give the same content every time, but whatever content you are creating, you just got to deliver it consistently. So whatever you promise, say weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, you got to keep delivering it, right? I mean, people want to, so, say, for example, a big TV show hit like Cheers or Friends, not all the episodes are fantastic. So I'm a big Seinfeld fan, right? Not all the episodes are as funny as, say, The Puffy Shirt or The Contest, right? Some are less funny, some are more funny, but back in the 90s, that you will see a Seinfeld episode on a weekly basis. So some are, up, some are a 2, some are a 5, some are a 8, some are a 20. But, you're just looking to get content and learn. So, allow people to, listen to you or your content creation methodology.
Since you used the TV analogy, one of the things that they do there, obviously, to value a show, how much they charge an advertiser, is the demographics of the audience. That's really challenging for podcasters, as I'm sure you well know. So any thoughts there as to how I continue to be able to define who's listening?
that is something you ought to be thinking about.
I
Like,
am. That's why I'm asking the question.
so, who are you creating the content for? Right. So, like, my content is created for people who want to learn about valuations, or maybe startup founders, or maybe um, people who are curious to travel, or maybe with the new season, people who listen to the History Channel, or people who listen to watch shows like Modern Engineering, Modern Marvels. At least that's my thought process. Now, again, you might find out something differently, right? So again, just like any other network, you got to go for marketing studies, and you don't have to pay in hundreds of thousands, but maybe you can just say, hey, I'm giving away Amazon gift card for $100, if you are willing to volunteer as a give me a survey of what you think of my podcast, I'm happy to share that with you, or something to the effect. It's up to you to get the feedback from your audience, or learn who your audience is.
Got it. That's all I got, Ethan.
Okay. I have a couple more then. And Jinda, if you had any questions or comments, feel free to chime in at this point. So are you currently on the board of the American Society of Appraisers, or you at least have been, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about kind of taking on that role and what it entails, and just kind of fascinated with the sort of professional appraisers in general. So yeah, what's that like being on the board there?
It's fun. I mean, it's a lot of work. If I'm doing something, I don't phone it in, right? I actually get involved, and I'm helping them. So my big crusade there is I run their Rising Stars program. So Rising Stars is a program where we're getting young appraisers. By young, I mean under 40, involved into the organization, and recognizing their work in growing the valuation profession, which is frankly very rewarding for me personally. It's just fun meeting, young and up and coming appraisers, and helping them and showing them the ropes. I mean, there are people who did that to me. So this is my simple way of paying it forward.
And how did you get into so there's exams that you have to take and so on and so forth when you're
there are
involved
tests, there are exams, you have to take classes. I mean, American Society of Appraisers, I mean, there are other organizations for appraisers, but American Society of Appraisers is the gold standard. If you're an ASA, you're very well respected. And the reason for that is because it's difficult to get in. I mean, just the same way as education at Harvard, or Ohio State, or a community college is no different. I mean, they have the same content. They're probably using the same textbooks, but the students are different because it is so difficult to get into Harvard or Stanford or one of those classes, right? Places. So the underlying seed is of higher caliber, if you will, if that's the right term. Same thing with the ASA, right? If you become an ASA, you are really good at what you do, and that's why it's the gold standard. Because otherwise, they won't let you in.
And were you doing appraisals, sort of just as a matter of course, or kind of involved and engaged in that either professionally or just sort of like just your talents and skills before you actually decided to become a professional appraiser and become involved in the American Society of Appraisers and so on and so forth? Or did it just start when you got involved with the organization?
No, I've been a member for 20 years, and all my professional life, I've been an appraiser. So this is what I do. And, many of my bosses have been involved with the organization. So I have a lot of legacy knowledge.
Got it. Cool. I find it fascinating. I think I mentioned to you, I'm in the piano business, and I have a friend who's a piano appraiser. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. We actually had him do a lecture on appraising pianos, and it's fascinating just the sort of breadth and scope of what can be appraised, and how really, even when you get the basic principles of appraisals down, you pass these general exams for an organization, you still have to be a niche down into something special. He can appraise pianos. He cannot appraise fine art. He cannot appraise, homes or whatever. Like, it's just not his wheelhouse, and he can't professionally go out and doing those things. I find it kind of fascinating, this sort of niching down and what people get into. You especially have your own special niche as well.
Well, the same thing like attorneys, right? I mean, there are patent attorneys, there are family lawyers, and there are corporate lawyers, and there are guys who do estate law, there are guys who do real estate law, there are appellate lawyers. So just how there are different niches and niche and crooks and crannies of the law, the same way with valuation.
Cool. Well, we are just about up for time, so I want to make sure we got a smooth transition out of the session. Is there any last minute comments or questions you had, Henry, by any chance? Okay. So before we head out, I want to make sure we don't miss opportunity for you to sort of deliver any, websites or, how people can find out more about you. So go ahead, take a minute and let us all know that, in case anybody wants to dive deeper into your world. Where would you send them?
I'm just here to help people and educate people on valuation. So if you want to learn about valuations, just go to my YouTube channel called What's It Worth, and just see what I have. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm sure you could just Google my name and find out about me, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you spending this hour with us. It's been fascinating learning about your approach to everything. Best of luck with your appraisal business moving forward and your YouTube channel. And thanks for inspiring us to put, 80% into the preparation. I think that's a really interesting approach you have there. And I think we'll be inspired by that. But yeah, I think we'll wrap the session up if there's nothing else from you.
Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Henry. We'll see you next week. Jinda, thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again in the future, and we'll sign off. So thanks a lot, Bharat.